What's up guys, JV2017 here, and today I'm showing you how to build your very own companion inspired by the Big Daddy from Bioshock. Now keep in mind there are certain limitations, and right now it's quite difficult to make a robot look exactly like a Big Daddy. We don't have any PC mods that can really achieve this with Automatron yet, and for this reason, the build I'm first going to show you is an attempt at looking the most like a Big Daddy that we can, while the second build attempts to make the most out of a melee-based robot that's inspired by the Big Daddy. So let's get started. First, we're taking a look at the Big Daddy that looks most like the actual Big Daddy from Bioshock, and I mean, we have to work with what Fallout gives us, but I thought this was a cool idea. So first off, looking at the head, I chose the Robo brain head mostly because of the impaler helm, and if you go and look a little bit closer here, it's a little cut off from the top of the screen, but you can tell those little dots on the very top are very reminiscent of the Big Daddy helmet, the helmet that the Big Daddy wears. And so this was the thing that literally looks the most like, you know, what a Big Daddy would have. You might want to go for the head hydraulic frame if you really wanted to. That kind of gives off the vibe of kind of the pipes that kind of surround the Big Daddy's helmet, but I think the impaler helm definitely looks, you know, more like it, and also fits this kind of, you know, robot play style. So the impaler helm with the Robo brain is what I went with here. Next, for the torso, I really went for a Sentry torso, and that just made sense because of the health. It gives you a ton of health, and also just because it looks the most like it. It's huge. You can tell it really goes really big and back in the back, and of course that fits a Big Daddy. And for the armor, I really went standard. You know, this isn't going to cost you guys a lot of you know, materials if you want to do this, but the standard just looked the most natural to me and most like the Big Daddy. Really, you know, all of these are kind of wacky and crazy. You could go for the hydraulic frame if you have armor 3, but that's something I'm going to talk about in a second here. And for the back part, I actually went for the hydraulic frame just because, you know, I feel like the Big Daddy has some pipes and stuff in the back, and so that kind of satisfied that requirement, and also it has some really nice benefits here. Carry capacity, you know, damage resistance. It does require armor 3, but I went with that. But you could just as easily go for, you know, rear factory armor, just, you know, standard right there. That doesn't really change a lot in way of, you know, the appearance of the Big Daddy. So furthermore, in the torso, I didn't put anything in the shoulder slots because that, you know, Big Daddies don't have giant, you know, launchers in the back, so didn't go for that. As far as the bottom mod here, kind of the extra special mod slot, I went with resistance field. It made the most sense having extra damage resistance since this is going to be kind of a melee-based robot build here. Moving on to the arms. For each arm, I kind of was inspired by, you know, that really popular picture of the Big Daddy with the drill in one hand and the fist in the other. And for the left arm, you know, I decided to go with the giant hammer fist with a Sentry left arm, and really all of the other arms kind of dwarf this hammer, as you can tell, except for the Robo brain, but you can't really armor that arm. The Sentry left arm is really the only one that makes sense. It increases melee damage as well, so that, you know, makes a lot of sense. And then I went with the factory armor. It just seemed the most protective. Some of these, again, seem a little wacky. They don't really look a lot like what the Big Daddy would actually have, and so really factory armor is pretty much what you want to go with. And then the hammer. There's not really a giant fist. There are, you know, giant hammers. Obviously, there's a hammer saw as well, but I don't know. That didn't really make a lot of sense to me. Just kind of to mimic a fist, the best thing that I could find was a hammer, and that giant hammer looks really cool, of course. And of course, in the right arm, we have the classic drill, again with the Sentry arm and the factory armor. The right-hand drill just made a lot of sense to me, and that's really what inspired this whole thing. Seeing that drill, I instantly thought Big Daddy, so that just made sense to me. And then finally, for the legs, this was a little weird because it's not like there really wasn't a best option in my opinion. Sentry Legs is the one I settled with. Obviously, Mr. Handy Thruster, not what you want. Protectron Legs makes this thing tiny. A Big Daddy is fairly big, so that's not something I wanted to go for. Assaultron just looks really awkward. There's not really any armor that can really protect that and make it look more natural. Robo brain is something you guys might want to try just because of how big the drill becomes. That drill is massive. So if you can get over the fact that, you know, this is a Big Daddy on treads, Robo brain's something really cool. But I just settled for Sentry Legs. That made the most sense to me and still made the Big Daddy, you know, a fairly large, you know, machine. And then for the armor, just standard leg factory armor is pretty much everything if you want your Big Daddy robot to look as much like a Big Daddy as possible. And so that's really what I went with with the legs. And for the voice, I just picked the male process voice. There are some other options like the bleeping if you don't want your Big Daddy to speak. You want them just to do more of a bleeping. That's, kind of a cool idea if you wanted to go for that. And then for the paint, this is also really up to you guys. You could go for black, but I think, something like this dark green that I already have, or dark gray. The dark green reminded me kind of a rusted look like the Big Daddy already has. So that's really what I went for. Now, if you want to go for the more extreme version of the Big Daddy, then this is for you. This is maximizing pretty much everything that we can do with melee while still keeping with the theme of the drill and kind of the hammer. Of course, I added a saw on there as well. So for the head, I went ahead and switched from the Robo Brain to just a Sentry factory helmet, and then I used the Carnage helm because that adds a chance for targets to explode. So that's absolutely ridiculous. It's going to help you a lot with this kind of build as well. For the torso, I stuck with Sentry, but I replaced a lot of this armor with, some crazy different armor types. So front brutal storage plate, pretty much the maximum amount of damage resistance. So that's something you want to go for. And then rear Warmonger. Really anything with Warmonger, you're going to see that a lot in this version of the Big Daddy. Melee targets bleed. So it's going to add different effects for your melee targets. And that's what this, robot is all about. This Big Daddy is melee targets. So didn't go with anything on the shoulders because that doesn't really make any sense once again. And stuck with the resistance field from the first version of the Big Daddy. So onto the arms, we stuck with a Sentry arm. However, again, we went with the Warmonger spiked plate that gives you, melee targets bleed. So that's obviously something that's going to help us out. And then we went with the left hand hammer saw. Instead of just the normal hammer, went for the hammer saw, which just is an improved versions, has that bleeding effect. So your target's going to be bleeding all over the place is basically what we're going for here. On the right arm, pretty much same basics thing as the left. However, we stuck with the right hand drill, again, keeping with the Big Daddy theme of this robot. So for the legs, stuck with the Sentry Legs because that makes a lot of sense. But instead, we went for, some of the spiked plate in the middle section. Melee targets bleeding, you guys pretty much get the point. Warmonger, I went with that on the left leg. However, hold on, let me show you that again. On the left leg, that has a chance to knock down melee targets. I wanted to incorporate that because that's kind of a cool effect. And of course, Big Daddy knocks down targets. So on the back one, there really wasn't anything that was Warmonger related, so I just kind of went for the maximum resistance, which is pretty much a good idea. And then for the right leg, we have the Merciless spike leg. So I didn't go Warmonger again. I mean, it does look pretty cool, but I wanted to just, go back to the melee targets bleeding because we already had that knockdown effect. And I'm not really sure if, knockdown effect stacks. I'm not really sure about that. I can't confirm that or deny that, but Merciless is also a good option. It looks very cool as well. So that's pretty much all I've got for you guys. And this is kind of an interesting build that is obviously really cool to run around with, especially if you got your Mechanist costume. Just have this giant Big Daddy rolling around with you, just rolling over everything, over all the targets. I mean, it really is an effective build, and I encourage you guys to go and try it out and kind of report back to me your experiences with these Big Daddy builds. Of course, this one is going to be the more effective of the two just because of all the crazy, ridiculous things we put on there, but it is going to, require higher ranks of perks, all things like that. And so it's going to require more materials, just more of an investment overall. You're going to have to be a higher level in order to pull this one off. So as you guys watch this behemoth take on my Big Daddy, I want to hear from you. Is this Big Daddy something you're going to try to make? Or are you going to try to wait until there's certain mods if you're on PC to make him look more like a Big Daddy? And also in the comments below, let me know what other kind of robot companion build ideas you guys can come up with. I've already got a few I'm working on that I could release pretty soon here, but let me know if there's something you'd like to see me build here on the channel and release as a future video. Alright guys, today I showed you how to build a Big Daddy robot in Fallout 4, and next time we will cover more Fallout on my channel, so stay tuned for Fallout 4 tips and tricks videos. And if you learned something new, remember to hit that like button. I would really appreciate it. And don't forget to subscribe for more Automatron DLC coverage, robot build guides, and general tips and tricks videos. Talk to you guys next time. Peace.